Hello, 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 greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of greeting across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear, wonderful scholars, to the study. Hello there, hello there, hello there, cool skeleton. Welcome. Hello there, Yulian 20. Greetings and congratulations on getting first. And hello there, Dr. Zadium. Welcome. How are all you wonderful, fine scholars doing this fine evening, afternoon, morning, whatever time it is, wherever you are across this amazing omniverse, multiverse, universe? Yulian 20, fantastic, wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I love hearing my wonderful scholars doing, well, wonderful. Oh my goodness. Cool skeleton, pretty good. Oh, I am so happy. I am happy. I'm actually in a really good mood right now. I don't know why. I am pumped up, as they say. Oh my goodness gracious. Might be something in the water. I don't know. Did you put something in the water, horse? Might just be me. Yulian 20, I am so glad. Well, I'm glad that you're glad that I'm glad. Glad. Okay, I'm getting a little silly now. Before we begin, we must welcome a new scholar. Zandrick, thank you for the follow. Wonderful to have you as part of our marvelous group of scholars. Oh, hello there, Firefly. Welcome. Good evening to you as well. Cool skeleton. I could use some of that positive emotion. Aw. Well, I'm glad I can give you positivity, giving you all the positivity I can. If I actually had arms to move, it would mean something right now. But I am working on that. I am working on that. I have the equipment somewhere. Just have to get it running. Oh my goodness. Yes, it's been a busy day. I've traveling all over the study today. Did a little bit of book shopping, as it were. Picked up a few things, but we'll see how it turns out. Cool skeleton noodle arms. I don't think my arms are that wiggly. Again, if I had, motion sensing for my arms, what I'm doing right now would absolutely mean something. But I don't, so just use your imagination that I am doing something very silly right now. Cool skeleton. I did some rigging for a V2 model today. Oh, wonderful! Wonderful! You'll be joining the club soon, and I'll have to welcome you with open arms. Somehow this topic has really turned into arms for some reason tonight. I don't know why. I swear this is not scripted. I just keep turning back the topic to arms. It's really strange. Cool Skeleton, I don't know about streaming just yet, but I will be using it in the near future. Exciting! I look forward to seeing it, Cool Skeleton. I'm sure it will be wonderful. Ah, but alas, we must move on to what we're doing tonight. Oh, jeez. Tonight, my dear marvelous scholars, we are continuing our reading of Jerome K. Jerome's Three Men in a Boat. Mm. It's actually been a fun read. We don't have many chapters left. We have enough, I think, for two more streams of this book. But last few chapters have been pretty fun. I mean, Cool Skeleton, all about the dog. Oh yes, let us not forget all about the dog. That's actually a fun fact. The book itself is based off people Jerome K. Jerome knew, and many of the situations in the book, with comes to boating, were situations he found himself in. But the dog was made up. And Jerome K. Jerome said that he put the dog in there because he felt that no good English traveling book should be without a dog. So, yeah, that's the only character in this book who is 100% fictional. All the rest have some basis in close friends of Jerome K. Jerome. Julian 20, what kind of dog? I don't think we're ever given. I don't think we're ever told. I think. Hold on. I think. I think if this the description for this chapter tonight, the first one, it's a fox terrier, I believe, but I don't think they ever say what kind of dog. Julian Cool Skeleton. I like Dobermans. Julian 20 English Sheepdog. I don't think it's those because they're in a boat, and I don't think they would bring along a big dog like that. They would have to conserve some kind of room. And they would have to have a dog which would at least, stay in place while they're traveling. Oh my goodness. Firefly has to be small enough. Yes, it has to be a fairly small dog. So I'm guessing when they say in the description of this one, a fox terrier, yes, cool skeleton purse dog. I don't think that's small. I think that'd be a little too small. But I digress. My dear marvelous scholars, shall we continue our journey down the Thames with Jay, Harris, and George in Three Men in a Boat? Julian 20, Wiener Dog. A Wiener Dog could fit in a boat like that, I suppose. Cool Skeleton Wolf. I am more of a cat person, honestly, than a dog person. No offense to dogs. No offense to dogs, but I like cats, personally. Julian 20, ready. Ooh, eager, eager, eager. So then, my dear, marvelous scholars, sit back, relax, have a hot or cold beverage of your liking, and let us begin our continuation of Three Men in a Boat, to say nothing of the dog, by Jerome K. Jerome. Cool Skeletons, cats are better, but I am a burb person. Well, someone has to be. Cool Skeleton knobs dirt. Don't knob dirt. Don't eat dirt. Get that out of your mouth. Dirt is not good. You don't eat dirt. Do not eat dirt, Cool Skeleton. Bad. Bad skeleton. Chapter 13. Marlow is one of the pleasantest river centers I know of. It is a bustling, live little town. Not very picturesque on the whole, it is true, but there are many quaint nooks and corners to be found in it, nevertheless. Standing arches and the shattered bridge of time, over which our fancy travels back to the days when Marlow Manor owned Saxon Algar for its lord, ere conquering William seized it to give to Queen Matilda, ere it passed to the Earls of Warwick, or to worldly wise Lord Paget, the counsellor of four successive sovereigns. And of course, when they talk about conquering William, they're talking about William the Conqueror. Don't get me started on English history. I could go on for hours about that. But yes. Cool Skeleton. I was buried in it for several years. That is fair. That is fair. There is lovely country round about it too, if after boating you are fond of a walk, while the river itself is at its best here. Down to Cookham, past the quarry woods and the meadows, is a lovely reach. Dear old quarry woods, with your narrow climbing paths and little winding glades, how scented to this hour you seem with memories of sunny summer days! How haunted are your shadowy vistas with the ghosts of laughing faces! How from your whispering leaves there softly fall the voices of long ago! My dear scholars, we're in another section which was basically the original travel log, so don't expect a lot of laughs here. From Marlow up to Sunning is even fairer yet. Grand old Bissam Abbey, whose stone walls have run to the shouts of Knights Templars, and which at one time was the home of Anne of Cleves, and at another of Queen Elizabeth, is passed on the right bank, just half a mile above Marlow Bridge. Bisham Abbey is rich in melodramatic properties. It contains a tapestry bedchamber and a secret room hid high up in the thick walls. The ghost of the Lady Hoby who beat her little boy to death. Oh my goodness, what? That is horrible. Still walks there at night, trying to wash its ghostly hands clean in a ghostly basin. Oh my goodness. We start off with a lovely description of marvelous this marvelous city by the river, and we end up with a reminder that there was a ghost of a woman who beat her child to death with her bare hands. That is a lovely switch of topics, I will tell you, for a travelogue. From Marlow up to Sunning is even fairer still, yet. Grand old Bisham at. Oh, I already said that. Why am I going for there? Oh, sorry about that, scholars. Lost my place. Warwick, the kingmaker, rests there, careless now about such trivial things as earthly kings and earthly kingdoms, and Salisbury, who did good service at Poitiers, just before did good service at Poitiers. Odd sentence that. Just before you come to the abbey, and right on the river's bank, is Bisham Church, and perhaps if any tombs are worth inspecting, they are the tombs and monuments in Bisham Church. It was while floating in his boat under the Bisham beaches that Shelley, who was then living at Marlow, you can see his house now in West Street, composed The Revolt of Islam. Hmm. What's his name? Percy Shelley, the poet, of course. I've never actually heard of that work. Hmm. Very odd. I will make a confession. Wait. I have read one of Shelley's works, which he did Ozymandias, didn't he? I believe Shelley wrote Ozymandias. I think that's the only piece of his literature I have actually read. Um, I don't think I've ever read anything else done by Shelley, which is odd. Really should get on to that. By Hurley Weir, a little higher up, I have often thought that I could stay a month without having sufficient time to drink in all the beauty of the scene. The village of Hurley, 5 minutes' walk from the loch, is as old a little spot as there on the river, dating, as it does, to quote the quaint phraseology of those dim days, from the time of King Sebert and King Offa. Just past the weir, going up, is Danes' Field, where the invading Danes once encamped during their march to Gloucestershire. Try and say that 10 times fast. And excuse me, a little farther still, nestling by a sweet corner of the stream, is what is left of Medmenham Abbey. Now this is an interesting little bit of history, my dear scholars. Here we go. The famous Medmenham monks, or Hellfire Club, as they were commonly called, and of whom the notorious Wilkes was a member, were a fraternity whose motto was "Do as you please," and that invitation still stands over the ruined doorway of the abbey. Yes, the Hellfire Club. I'm sure some of you have ever heard of that in popular culture. Um, the Hellfire Club was a real thing. It essentially was a bit of essentially a secret club, very hedonistic, where you could be invited to do all manner of things, my dear scholars, which I do not suggest you do. I trust you're all very good scholars and not of that naughty type. Many years before this bogus abbey, with its congregation of irrelevant jesters, was founded, there stood upon the same spot a monastery of a sterner kind. Cool Skeleton, naughty. Don't even think about it, Cool Skeleton. Don't even think about it. I know you. whose monks were of a somewhat different type to the revelers that were to follow them 500 years afterwards. The Cistercian monks, I'm probably mispronouncing that horribly, whose abbey stood there in the 13th century, wore no clothes but rough tunics and cowls. How do tunics and cowls not count as clothes? And ate no flesh, nor fish, nor eggs. Must have been horribly boring. They lay upon straw, and they rose at midnight to mass. They spent the day in labor, reading and prayer, and over all their lives there fell a silence, as of death, for no one spoke. A grim fraternity, passing grim lives in that sweet spot that God had made so bright. Oh, hello there, Plague Doctorman. These people sound boring. They do. It does sound like a rather joyless existence. I would not recommend it. Cisternian. Cisternian! That is the word. Got it right this time. Strange that nature's voices all around them, the soft singing of the waters, the whisperings of the river grass, the music of the rushing wind, should not have taught them a truer meaning of life than this. They listened there, through the long days in silence, waiting for a voice from heaven, and all day long and through the solemn night it spoke to them in myriad tones, and they heard it not. From Midmenham to sweet Hambledon Loch, the river is full of peaceful beauty, but after it passes Greenland's, the rather uninteresting looking river residence of my news agent, a quiet, unassuming old gentleman who may often be met with about these regions during the summer months, sculling himself along in easy, vigorous style, or chatting genteelly to some old lockkeeper as he passes through, until well the other side of Henley, it is somewhat bare and dull. Now let me get a quick drink of water. I want to keep myself hydrated. Horace and I were trying a few drinks in the study earlier, and really dried out my throat for some reason. We got up tolerably early on the Monday morning at Marlow, and went for a bathe before breakfast. And coming back, Montmorency made an awful ass of himself. The only subject on which Montmorency and I have any serious difference of opinion is cats. I like cats. Montmorency does not. When I meet a cat, I say, "Poor pussy," and stoop down and tickle the side of its head, and the cat strikes up its tail in a rigid cast-iron manner, arches its back, and wipes its nose up against my trousers, and all is gentleness and peace. When Montmorency meets a cat, the whole street knows about it, and there is enough bad language wasted in 10 seconds to last an ordinary respectable man all his life, with care. I do not blame the dog, contenting myself as a rule with merely clouting his head or throwing stones at him, because I take it that it is in his nature. Fox terriers are born with about 4 times as much original sin in them as other dogs are, and it will take years and years of patient effort excuse me, and it will take years and years of patient effort on the part of us Christians to bring about any appreciable reformation in the rowdiness of the fox terrier nature. There's your answer. He is a Montmorency is a fox terrier. Plague Doctorman. Both people are correct depending on what cat you meet. I've met some mean cats. Oh yes, there's some mean cats there. The cat which resides here in the study is actually quite sweet. We call her the Celestial Cat. She's not around right now. I think she's hiding away, but she's quite a sweet little animal. Excuse me. I remember being in the lobby of the Haymarket stores one day, and all round me were dogs, waiting for the return of their owners, who were shopping inside. There were a Mastiff and 1 or 2 Collies, and a St. Bernard, a few Retrievers, and a Newfoundlands. a boarhound, a French poodle with plenty of hair around its head, but mangy about the middle, a bulldog, a few Lothair Arcade sort of animals about the size of rats, and a couple of Yorkshire tykes. There they sat, patient, good, and thoughtful. A solemn peacefulness seemed to reign in that lobby, an air of calmness and resignation, of gentle sadness, pervaded the room. Then a sweet young lady entered, leading a meek-looking little fox terrier, and left him chained up there between the bulldog and the poodle. He sat and looked about him for a minute. Then he cast up his eyes to the ceiling and seemed, judging from his expression, to be thinking of his mother. Then he yawned. Then he looked round at the other dogs, all silent, grave, and dignified. He looked at the bulldog, sleeping dreamlessly on his right. He looked at the poodle, erect and haughty, on his left. Then, without a word of warning, without the shadow of provocation, he bit that poodle's near foreleg, and a yelp of agony ran through the quiet shades of that lobby. The result of his first experiment seemed highly satisfactory to him, and he determined to go on and make things lively all round. Julian 20, oh my, oh yes, oh my. He sprang over the poodle and vigorously attacked a collie, and the collie woke up and immediately commenced a fierce and noisy contest with the poodle. Then Foxy came back to his own place and caught the bulldog by the ear and tried to throw him away, and the bulldog, a curiously impartial animal, went for everything he could reach, including the hall porter, which gave that dear little terrier the opportunity to enjoy an uninterrupted fight of his own with an equally willing Yorkshire tyke. Anyone who knows canine nature need hardly be told that by this time all the other dogs in the place were fighting as if their hearths and homes depended on the fray. The big dogs fought each other indiscriminately, and the little dogs fought among themselves and filled up their spare time by biting the legs of the big dogs. The whole lobby was a perfect pandemonium, and the din was terrific. A crowd assembled outside in the Haymarket and asked if it was a vestry meeting, or if not, who was being murdered and why. Men came with poles and ropes and tried to separate the dogs, and the police were sent for. And in the midst of the riot, that sweet young lady returned and snatched up that sweet little dog of hers. He had laid the tyke up for a month and had on the expression now of a newborn lamb, into her arms and kissed him and asked him if he was killed and what those great nasty brutes of dogs had been doing to him, and he nuzzled up against her and gazed up into her face with a look that seemed to say, "Oh, I'm so glad you've come to take me away from this disgraceful scene." Plague Doctor Men, Perfect Pandemonium is a great album name. It would be a wonderful album name. What a horrible little dog, too. She said that the people at the stores had no right to allow great savage things like those other dogs to be put with respectable people's dogs, and that she had a great mind to summon somebody. Such is the nature of fox terriers, and therefore I do not blame Montmorency for his tendency to row with cats, but he wished he had not given way to it that morning. Like Dr. Man, this dog needs to get its act together. Oh yeah, it does. But it's probably spoiled rotten, so it's probably not going to change. We were, as I have said, returning from a dip, and halfway up the high street a cat darted out from one of the houses in front of us, and began to trot across the road. Montmorency gave a cry of joy, the cry of a stern warrior who sees his enemy given over to his hands, the sort of cry Cromwell might have uttered when the Scots came down the hill and flew after his prey. Plague Doctor, I didn't know dogs could be elitist. Well, I'm sure some are. I'm sure. I mean, there are plenty of different personalities for dogs. I'm sure at least one of them is snotty. No offense to dog lovers, by the way. His victim was a large black Tom. I never saw a larger cat nor a more disreputable looking cat. It had lost half its tail, one of its ears, and a fairly appreciable proportion of its nose. It was a long, sinewy looking animal. It had a calm, contented air about it. Montmorency went for that poor cat at the rate of 20 miles an hour. But the cat did not hurry up, did not seem to have grasped the idea that its life was in danger. It trotted quietly on until its would-be assassin was within a yard of it, and then it turned round, and sat down in the middle of the road, and looked at Montmorency with a gentle, inquiring expression that said, "Yes, you want me?" Montmorency did not lack pluck, but there was something about the look of that cat that might have chilled the heart of the boldest dog. He stopped abruptly, and looked back at Tom. Neither spoke, but the conversation that one could imagine was clearly as followed. "Can I do anything for you?" Oh, forgot to mention who's talking. The cat. "Can I do anything for you?" Montmorency. "No, no thanks." The cat. "Don't you mind speaking? If you really want anything, you know." Montmorency, backing down the high street. Oh no, not at all. Certainly. Don't trouble. I'm afraid I've made a mistake. I thought I knew you. Sorry, I disturbed you." The cat. "Not at all. Quite a pleasure. Sure you don't want anything now?" Montmorency, still backing. "Not at all, thanks. Not at all. Very kind of you. Good morning." The cat. "Good morning." Then the cat rose and continued his trot, and Montmorency, fitting what he calls his tail carefully into its groove, came back to us, and took up an unimportant position in the rear. Plague Doctor, that's very interesting in the theory of some dogs look down on other species of dogs. I also get that anxious upon meeting new people. Meeting new people, yeah, it can be scary. Um, Personally, I feel some little bit of anxiety when I meet new people. But I tend to try to somewhat mask it. But I can understand the anxiety there is in meeting new people. You have to be careful sometimes because you never know how they're going to react. Goes Kelton, I would agree. Social anxiety hits hard. Oh yes, especially when you're in a position where you might be forced to, where you have no choice but meet to interact with people you don't know, and you have no way of basically retreating from the situation. In situations like that, it can be very daunting. Very daunting. And I sympathize with people who have to go through that quite a bit. To this day, if you say the word cats to Montmorency, he will visibly shrink and look up piteously at you as if to say, "Please don't." We did our marketing after breakfast and re-victualed the boat for 3 days. George said we ought to take vegetables, that it was unhealthy not to eat vegetables. He said they were easy enough to cook, and that he would see to that. So he got 10 pounds of potatoes, a bushel of peas, and a few cabbages. We got a beefsteak pie. A, we got a beefsteak pie, a couple of gooseberry tarts, and a leg of mutton from the hotel, and fruit and cakes and bread and butter and jam and bacon and eggs, and other things we foraged around about the town for. Our departure from Marlow I regard as one of our greatest successes. It was dignified and impressive, without being ostentatious. We had insisted at all the shops we had been to that the things should be sent with us then and there. None of your Oh, thank you for the follow, Plague Doctorman. Welcome. Let me do a little introduction. I am Matsu Quintox. I, I am Matsu Quinox, interdimensional omniversal librarian. I am a reading VTuber, as well as a general what's the word I'm looking for? A general VTuber. There I usually do gaming streams on Tuesday and reading streams on Thursday, and once in a while I will do a bit of variety streams. Variety streamer. That's the word. Variety VTuber. Thank you, Plague Doctorman. Yes. Oh, the words are getting stuck in my throat tonight. But welcome to our company of wonderful scholars, and I am honored to have you here. Uh, is I am always All these streams are for you, wonderful scholars. Oh, thank you for the raid, as a fall. Welcome and welcome, raiders. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh my goodness. Oh, I guess I should do the raid again. Not the raid, the introduction again. Hello there, newcomers. I am Matsu Quinox, interdimensional. Oh my goodness. Thank you for the follow, Egg124. I am Matsu Quinox, interdimensional omniversal librarian. I am a reading and variety VTuber. I do reading streams on Thursday, gaming streams on Thursday, and somewhat once in a while variety streams once in a while. So many things happening all at the same time. Oh my goodness. Tonight, all you wonderful raiders, I am reading the British humor book, 3 Men in a Boat, to say nothing of the dog. For those who are coming in late, yes, hello there, fellow reader. Thank you for the raid. Let me see if I can do a shout out. I shout out. There we go. Um, yes. I'm always happy to have a fellow reader here. Oh my goodness, I am so happy to meet other fellow readers. What were you in, uh, how do I put this? Were you having fun at your stream? No, that's not the word I'm looking for. Oh my goodness. I'm a little bit frazzled. Um, what were you doing at your stream? Were you reading a book? Playing a game? I'm curious to know. I will have to. Yes, I will follow. Oh, hello there, Kitty Catherine 8. You are welcome to lurk if you want to. I have no problems with lurkers. I am just honored to have all of you here. As I said before, these streams are for everyone, and I do it for everyone. I just like sharing my love of books. We have a little book club. We are reading some Oscar Wilde lately. Oh my goodness, wonderful! Actually, I will be a little bit scandalous. I haven't read Oscar Wilde, although I did read um, The Importance of Being Earnest, which is a fantastic play. If you haven't seen it, please do see a production. It is one of the funniest pieces of theatrical comedy ever. But yes, we are reading 3 Men in a Boat. We just got to the point where they are returning to their boat after having gone shopping for goods on their travels. Now, where was I? Oh my gosh, I'm so frazzled about this. None of your Yes, sir. I will send them off at once. The boy will be down there before you are, sir. And then fooling about on the landing stage and going back to the shop twice to have a row about them for us. We waited while the basket was packed and took the boy with us. We went to a good many shops, adopting this principle at each one, and the consequences was that by the time we had finished, We had as fine a collection of boys with baskets following us around as heart could desire, and our final march down the middle of the high street to the river must have been as imposing a spectacle as Marlowe had seen for many a long day. Plague Doctorman, didn't he read the picture of Dorian Gray, or was that someone else? No, he did write that. He also wrote a collection of fairy tales, believe it or not. I take it back. I have read some of his fairy tales, and the Selfish Giant is one of my favorites. Um, it's a very heartfelt story, and it's very touching. Dino Gain 139, thank you for the first time chat. Oh, it's all right. You're a little late. It's fine. I'm glad. I'm simply happy to have you here. And welcome, Dino Gain 139. Welcome to the study. The order of the procession was as follows: Montmorency carrying a stick, two disreputable looking curs, friends of Montmorency's, George carrying coats and rugs and smoking a short pipe, Harris trying to walk with easy grace while carrying a bulged out Gladstone bag in one hand and a bottle of lime juice in the other, greengrocer's boy and baker's boy with baskets. Oh, thank you for the follow, Dino Gain 139, and welcome to our little group of scholars. Glad to have you here. Greengrocer's boy and baker's boy with baskets. Boots from the hotel, carrying hamper. Now, when they mean boots here, they're talking about a very specific kind of job, which was a boots at the time would be someone who works at the hotel, usually cleaning boots, which is where they get the name from, but they also do like odd little work throughout the hotel. They'll be doing deliveries and making sure you wake up at a certain amount of time and doing little odds and end fixtures. Confectioner's boy with basket. Grocer's boy with basket. Long-haired dog. Cheesemonger's boy with basket. Odd man carrying a bag. Bosom companion of odd man with his hand in his pockets, smoking a short clay. Fruiterer's boy with baskets. Myself carrying 3 hats and a pair of boots, and trying to look as if I didn't know it. 6 small boys and 4 stray dogs. When we got to the landing stage, the boatman said, "Let me see, sir. Was yours a steam launch or a houseboat?" On our informing him it was a double sculling skiff, he seemed surprised. We had a good deal of trouble with steam launches that morning. It was just before the Henley week, and they were going up in large numbers, some by themselves, and some towing houseboats. I do hate I do hate steam launches. I suppose every rowing man does. I never see a steam launch, but I feel I should like to lure it to a lonely part of the river, and there in the silence and the solitude, strangle it. They are so violent, these people. There is a blatant bumpturous about a steam launch that has the knack of rousing every evil instinct in my nature, and I yearn for the good old days when you could go about and tell people what you thought of them with a hatchet and a bow and arrows. The expression on the face of the man who, with his hand in his pockets, stands by the stern, smoking a cigar, is sufficient to excuse a breach of the peace by itself, and the lordly whistle for you to get out of the way would, I am confident, ensure a verdict of justifiable homicide from any jury of rivermen. Plague Doctorman, I mean, at least they're honest about it. Oh yes, they are honest. They used to have to whistle for us to get out of their way. If I may do so without appearing boastful, I think I can honestly say that our one small boat, during that week, caused more annoyance and delay and aggravation to the steam launches that we came across than all the other craft of the river put together. Steam launch. I gotta get some voice. Excuse me. Steam launch coming! One of us would cry out on sighting the enemy in the distance, and in an instant everything was got ready to receive her. I would take the lines, and Harris and George would sit down beside me, all of us with our backs to the launch, and the boat would drift out quietly into midstream. On would come the launch, whistling, and on we would go, drifting. At about 100 yards off, she would start whistling like mad, and the people would come and lean over the side and roar at us, but we never heard them. Harris would be telling us an anecdote about his mother, and George and I would not have missed a word of it for worlds. Then that launch would give one final shriek of a whistle that would nearly burst the boiler, and she would reverse her engines and blow off steam and swing round and get aground. Everyone on board of it would rush to the bow and yell at us, and the people on the bank would stand and shout at us, and all the other passing boats would stop and join in, till the whole river, for miles up and down, was in a state of frantic commotion. And then Harris would break off in the most interesting part of his narrative and look up with mild surprise and say to George, "Why, George, bless us, if here isn't a steam launch!" And George would answer, "Well, do you know, I thought I heard something." Upon which we would get nervous and confused, and not know how to get the boat out of the way, and the people in the launch would crowd round and instruct us. "Pull your right, you idiot! Back with your left! No, not you, the other one! Leave the lines alone, can't you? Now, both together! Not that way! Oh, you!" Then they would lower a boat and come to our assistance, and after a quarter of an hour's effort, would get us clean out of their way, so that they would go on, and we would thank them so much and ask them to give us a tow, but they never would. Another good way we discovered of irritating the aristocratic type of steam launch. Oh, thank you for the follow, Azraphel. Thank you, and welcome to our little group of scholars. I'm so happy to have you here. I am really honored to have all of you here. I am not joking about that. I am always honored by every little new scholar who joins us. Another good way we discovered of irritate Azraphel gonna lurk and eat dinner. Okay, fair enough. Enjoy your dinner. Another good way we discovered of irritating the aristocratic type of steam launch was to mistake them for a bean feast, and ask them if they were Messer Cubits, Lot, or Bermondsey Good Templars, and could they lend us a saucepan. Old ladies, not accustomed to the river, are always intensely nervous of steam launches. I remember going up once from Staines to Windsor, a strip of water particularly rich in these mechanical monstrosities, with a party containing 3 ladies of this description. It was very exciting. At the first glimpse of every steam launch that came in view, they insisted on landing and sitting down on the bank until it was out of sight again. Then they were very sorry, but that they owed it to their families not to be foolhardy. We found ourselves short of water at Hambleton Lock, so we took our jar and went up to the lock keeper's house to beg for some. George was our spokesman. He put on a winning smile and said, "Oh, please, could you spare us a little water?" "Certainly," replied the old gentleman. "Take as much as you want, and leave the rest." "Thank you so much," murmured George, looking about him. Where do you keep it?" "It's always in the same place, my boy," was the stolid reply. "Just behind you." I don't see it," said George, turning round. "Why, bless us, where's your eyes?" was the man's comment, as he twisted George round and pointed up and down the stream. That's enough of it to see, ain't there? Oh, exclaimed George, grasping the idea. But we can't drink the river, you know. No, but you can drink some of it, replied the old fellow. It's what I've drunk for the last 15 years. I would not drink river water. No. Oh no. I can tell you that, dear scholars. And don't you drink river water. Don't ever dare risk that. Not unless you boil the heck out of it. George told him that his appearance, after the course, did not seem a sufficiently good advertisement for the brand, and that he would prefer it out of a pump. Private Maverick, unless you boil it and use iodine. Oh, hello there, Private Maverick. Welcome. Julian 20, I know too much about what is in it. Ooh, I really don't want to know. We got some from a cottage a little higher up. I dare say that was only river water if we had known, but we did not know, so it was all right. What the eye does not see, the stomach does not get upset over. Plague Doctorman, what if it looks like it would be really fun to drink it? Just don't! Don't, Cool Skeleton. Why not? Don't! What do you think? Don't spit that out right now, Cool Skeleton. Spit that out. Do not drink river water. There's horrible things floating in there. You will get very, 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 very ill off that sort of stuff. Plague Doctorman, deadly diseases are cool. No, they are not cool. Kintron, don't drink the water unless you know the source. That is the smartest thing ever. That is very smart, Kintron. And hello there, Kintron. Welcome. Cool Skeleton, but I'm already dead. Now I feel kind of stupid. Now I feel kind of silly, actually. Plague Doctorman, I'm a plague doctor. I can treat it. That is true. That is very true. I should have remembered that. Sorry about that, Plague Doctorman. You do 20 with herbs. Plague Doctorman, I'll flush it out of my system with more river water. You know, I'm not even going to argue that. That is a very interesting bit of logic. Drink the river, Cool Skull and Dutch. No, no, don't drink the river. No more river drinking. We tried river water once, later on in the season, but it was not a success. We were coming downstream and had pulled up to have tea in a backwater near Windsor. Our jar was empty, and it was a case of going without our tea or taking water from the river. Harris was for chancing it. He said it must be all right if we boiled the water. He said that the various germs of poison present in the water would be killed by the boiling. So we filled our kettle with Thames backwater and boiled it, and very careful we were to see that it did boil. Plague Doctorman, I will drink the entire river. That is a very bold statement to make, and I applaud you, Plague Doctorman, for, you know, not holding back on that, on going all the way. We had made the tea, and were just settling down comfortably to drink it, when George, with his cup halfway to his lips, paused and exclaimed, "What's that?" "What's what?" asked Harris and I. "Why, that," said George, looking westward. Harris and I followed his gaze, and saw, coming down towards us on the sluggish current, a dog. It was one of the quietest and peacefullest dogs I have ever seen. I had never met a dog who seemed more contented, more easy in its mind. It was floating dreamily on its back, with its 4 legs stuck up straight into the air. It was what I should call a full-bodied dog, with a well-developed chest. Oh no! Oh, oh no. Plague Doctor, my husky is watching your stream. I don't think your husky will be very happy with this part. Oh no. Ani came, serene, dignified, and calm, until he was abreast of our boat, and there among the rushes he eased up and settled down cozily for the evening. Oh no. Oh no. George said he didn't want any tea, and emptied his cup into the water. Harris did not feel thirsty either, and followed suit. I had drunk half mine, but I wish I had not. I asked George if he thought I was likely to get typhoid. He said, "Oh no," he thought. "Oh no," he thought, "I had a very good chance indeed of escaping it. Anyhow, I should know it about anyhow, I should know in about a fortnight whether I had it or not, or had not." Julian 20, maybe cholera. Well, given that they are plague doctrine, now this is why you let your dog drink river water. You do it instead. Well, given the fact that they were now drinking river water with a dead dog in it. Yeah, not the cleanest water ever. We went up the backwater to Wargrave. It is a shortcut leading out of the right-hand bank about half a mile above Marsh Lock, and is well worth taking, being a pretty, shady little piece of stream, besides saving nearly half a mile of distance. Plague Doctorman, the dog seemed pretty chill. Well, yeah, there is a very, very good reason why it is absolutely chill. I don't think it can get any more chill than it is then. Of course its entrance is studded with posts and chains and surrounded with notice boards, menacing all kinds of torture, imprisonment, and death to everyone who dares set skull upon its waters. I wonder some of these riparian boors don't claim the air of the river and threaten everyone with 40 shillings fine who breathes it. But the posts and chains a little skill will easily avoid. And as for the boards, you might, if you have 5 minutes to spare and there is nobody about, take one or two of them down and throw them into the river. Halfway up the backwater, we got out and lunched, and it was during this lunch that George and I received rather a trying shock. Excuse me. Harris received a shock too, but I do not think Harris's shock could have been anything like so bad as the shock that George and I had over the business. Cool Skeleton, more for me, wine glass full of river sediment. There you go, eating dirt again. Oh, Cool Skeleton, what am I going to do with you? You see, it was in this way. We were sitting in a meadow, about 10 yards from the water's edge, and we had just settled down comfortably to feed. Harris had the beefsteak pie between his knees, and was carving it, and George and I were waiting with our plates ready. "Have you got a spoon there?" says Harris. "I want a spoon to help the gravy with." The hamper was close behind us, and George and I both turned round to reach one out. We were not 5 seconds getting it when we looked round again. Harris and the pie were gone. It was a wide open field. There was not a tree or a bit of hedge for hundreds of yards. He could not have tumbled into the river because we were on the water's side of him, and he would have had to climb over us to do it. George and I gazed all about. Then we gazed at each other. "Has he been snatched up to heaven?" I queried. "They'd hardly have taken the pie, too," said George. There seemed weight to the subjection, and we discarded the heavenly theory. "I suppose the truth of the matter is," suggested George, descending to the commonplace and practical. Oh, thank you for the follow, Ariana. Ariana Myers. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you for the follow and welcome to our little group of scholars. Glad to have you here. Oh my goodness, thank you for the follow, Cool Show 9000, and welcome. And thank you for joining our little group of scholars here. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What a night tonight is. I suppose the truth of the matter is, suggested George, descending to the commonplace and practicable, that there has been an earthquake. Cool Show 9000, you know you're cool when I'm here. Well, I'm glad to have you here, Cool Show. Plague Doctor, river water, stop with the river water. Cool Skeleton, guess I'm not the only cool one anymore. Julian 20, soup. What does soup have anything to do with this, Julian 20? Really? And then he added, with a touch of sadness in his voice, I wish he hadn't been carving that pie. With a sigh, we turned our eyes once more towards the spot where Harris said the pie had last been seen on earth. And there, as the blood froze in our veins and our hair stood up on end, we saw Harris's head. And nothing but his head, sticking bolt upright among the tall grass, the face very red and bearing upon it an expression of great indignation. Oh, thank you for the hydrate and the posture check, cool show. Yes, I do need hydration. River water soup. No river water soup. Plague Doctorman, you know you're cool when you have cholera. Abraham Lincoln. I do not think Abraham Lincoln said that. I somehow doubt that. Cool show. Say cool show 5 times fast. I can't say it that fast. I'm not. I'm not very good at speaking things fast. Cool show, cool show. And somehow, yes, I could try, but I think I would mess it up. George was the first to recover. Speak, he cried, and tell us whether you are alive or dead, and where's the rest of you? Oh, don't be a stupid ass, said Harris's head. I believe you did it on purpose. Did what? Exclaimed George and I. Why, put me to sit here. Darn silly trick. Here, catch hold of the pie. And out of the middle of the earth, as it seemed to us, rose the pie, very much mixed up and damaged. And after it scrambled Harris, tumbled, grubby, and wet. He had been sitting, without knowing it, on the very verge of a small gully, the lawn grass hiding it from view, and in leaning a little back he had shot over, pie and all. He said he had never felt so surprised in all his life as when he first felt himself going, without being able to conjecture in the slightest what had happened. He thought first that the end of the world had come. Harris believes to this day that George and I planned it all beforehand. Thus does unjust suspicion follow even the most blameless, for as the poet says, who shall escape calumny? I've never heard of that word in my life. Calumny. Who indeed? Plague Doctorman, I'm not good at speaking. Plague Doctorman, I am good at drinking river water, though. Is everyone going to be drinking river water tonight? Cool show. I'm imagining a talking head, and it's funny. Well, it is supposed to be funny. This is a very funny book. For those who are coming in, this book, a little bit of history lesson about this book. This book originally started off as a straightforward travelogue on how to travel along the River Thames in a boat. But the author, Jerome K. Jerome, just kept adding in little humorous stories into the book to the point where the joke chapters overtook the serious chapters. And it became a huge bestseller. And also got a lot of bad reviews from critics who felt it was too lowbrow for British readers, which is funny. Plague Doctor Man, I'm heading down to the local river as we speak. Interesting. Cool Skeleton, a toast. Here's to a good drink with some good people. Sips River. Oh my goodness, why is this happening? Cool show. Hey, I don't go down river. I'm too cool for that. Apparently you are. Chapter 14. We caught a breeze after lunch, which took us gently up past Wargrave and Shiplake, mellowed in the drowsy sunlight of a summer's afternoon. Wargrave, nestling where the river bends, makes a sweet old picture as you pass it, and one that lingers upon the retina of memory. Plague Doctorman, and I live in Warrington, so I don't even think that's a river. Oh, interesting. The George and Dragon at Wargrave boasts a sign, painted on the one side by Leslie R.A., and on the other by Hodgson of that ilk. Leslie has depicted the fight. Hodgson has imaged the scene after the fight. George the work done, enjoying his pint of beer. Day, the author of Sandford and Merton, lived, and more credit to the place still, was killed at Wargrave. In the church is a memorial to Mrs. Sarah Hill, who bequeathed £1 annually to be divided at Easter between two boys and two girls who had never been undutiful to their parents, who had never been known to swear or to tell untruths, to steal or to break windows. Oh, thank you for the hydrate plate, Doctor. Plague Doctor, hydrate. Take a sip of total normal water. Wink, wink. Given the fact that I am an omniversal abstract being which only appears to be humanoid, um, I would not get sick off river water easily. Well, I might imagine metaphysically get sick, but not actual sick. Cool show. Who? What? Where? How? Why? Like Dr. Man, why would you think I would? I don't know. I'm just guessing. Who had never been known to swear or to tell untruths, to steal or to break windows. Fancy giving up all that for 5 shillings a year. It is not worth it. It is rumored in the town that once many years ago a boy appeared who really never had done these things, or at all events, which was all that was required or could be expected, had never been known to do them, and thus won the crown of glory. He was exhibited for 3 weeks afterwards in the town hall under a glass case. What has become of the money since, no one knows. They say it is always handed over to the nearest waxworks show. Oh, that's mean. Ship Lake is a pretty village, but it cannot be seen from the river, being upon the hill. Tennyson was married in Ship Lake Church. Alfred Lord Tennyson, the poet, I'm guessing. Plague Doctrine, you don't know if I'm a metaphysical being or not. That is a good question. I don't know. I'm assuming, I suppose. Show lucky and unlucky, I'm immortal. Hmm. Welcome to the club. It's good to know you all. Where am I? The river up to Soning winds in and out through many islands and is very placid, hushed, and lonely. Few folks except at twilight Few folks, except at twilight, a pair or two of rustic lovers, walk along its banks. Incorrect being immortal and cool can't go together. Oh, really? Cool show well, and yet here I am. This is getting interesting, my dear scholars. Private Mac, if I'm going up the creek, I'll paddle you. Airy and Lord Fritz Noodle have been left behind at Henley, and dismal, dirty Reading is not yet reached. It is a part of the river in which to dream of bygone days, and vanished forms and faces, and things that might have been, but are not. Confound them. We got out at Sonning, and went for a walk round the village. It is the most fairy-like little nook on the whole river. It is more like a stage village than one built of bricks and mortar. Every house is smothered in roses, and now in early June they were excuse me, they were bursting forth in clouds of dainty splendor. If you stop at Sunning, put up at the Bull behind the church. It is a veritable picture of an old country inn, with green square courtyard in front, where, on seats beneath the trees, the old men group of an evening to drink their ale and gossip over village politics, with low, quaint rooms and latticed windows and awkward stairs and winding passages. We roamed about Sweet Soning for an hour or so, and then, it being too late to push on past Reading, we decided to go back to one of the Shiplake Islands and put up there for the night. It was still early when we got settled, and George said that as we had plenty of time, it would be a splendid opportunity to try a good slap-up supper. He said he would show us what could be done up the river in the way of cooking, and suggested that, with the vegetables and the remains of the cold beef and general odds and ends, we should make an Irish stew. Plague Doctorman, I'm speaking nonsense as it's 2 a.m. and I'm very sleepy. Oh my goodness, 2 a.m.? Oh wow. Oh, you take care though, Plague Doctorman. Don't push yourself too hard. It seemed a fascinating idea. George gathered wood and made a fire, and Harris and I started to peel the potatoes. I should never have thought that peeling potatoes was such an undertaking. The job turned out to be the biggest thing of its kind that I have ever been in. We began cheerfully, one might almost say skittishly, but our lightheartedness was gone by the time the first potato was finished. The more we peeled, the more peel there seemed to be left on. By the time we had got all the peel off and all the eyes out, there was no potato left. At least none worth speaking of. George came and had a look at it. It was about the size of a peanut. He said, "Oh, that won't do. You're wasting them. You must scrape them." So we scraped them, and that was harder work than peeling. Cool show, an eye for an eye. Was that a pun? Oh my goodness, was that a pun? Do we have a new punster here? Another thing my dear scholars must know. I have an aversion to puns. They are my bane. They are my... Oh, puns. Do not even mention them in my... Don't even mention them in my presence. Oh my goodness. Mm. Julian20, so we pun a lot just for Matsu. Yes, you like torturing me. You absolutely like torturing me. So we scraped them, and that was harder work than peeling. They are such an extraordinary shaped potatoes, all bumps and warts and hollows. We worked steadily for 25 minutes and did 4 potatoes. Then we struck. We said we should require the rest of the evening for scraping ourselves. Kinshon, wordplay is his punishment. Oh, thanks. Cool show, meh, I'll try not to make very punny puns. Plague Doctors, I hate puns with a burning passion, as do I. Puns are the lowest form of word humor. I never saw such a thing as potato scraping for making a fellow in a mess. It seems difficult to believe that the potato scrapings in which Harris and I stood half smothered could have come off 4 potatoes. It shows you what can be done with economy and care. Kintron, the Wogglebug, is shaking his head. The Wogglebug! We do not talk about the Wogglebug in my presence. We do not talk about the Wogglebug. He knows what he did, the Wogglebug. Cool show. Hey, what did the turkey say to the president? I am going to regret this. What did the turkey say to the president? Cool skeleton. No bones about it. He despises puns. Cool skeleton. You are going to be. Yes. Cool show. Pardon me. Now that's not a pun, that's a regular joke, so I'll let that pass. That's a pretty good joke. Plague Doctorman, what is a Wogglebug? A Wogglebug is a character from the second Oz book, The Land of Oz. He loves puns and he is very irritating and he is extremely arrogant and he knows what he did. He is on my list. I have a list. It includes Wogglebugs, mustaches, pet rocks, security cameras, and there's another one which I cannot recall tonight. My brain is blanking. I'm going to go back to the book before I lose my mind. Sandcastles. Thank you, Cool Skeleton. Sandcastles. George said it was absurd to have only 4 potatoes in an Irish stew, so we washed half a dozen or so more and put them in without peeling. We also put in a cabbage and about half a peck of peas. George stirred it all up, and then he said that there seemed to be a lot of room to spare. So we overhauled both the hampers and picked out all the odds and ends and the remnants and added them to the stew. There were half a pork pie and a bit of cold-boiled bacon left, and we put them in. Then George found himself a tin of potted salmon, and he emptied that into the pot. Cool show. Hey, I like making undead puns, and trust me, it's to... I'm not going to say it, and I'm not going to fall for those puns. Cool skeleton. I also made some art because of the sand castles. Plague Doctor, I never heard someone get so annoyed at sand castles. Oh, there is a story behind that. Kidtron, they always get a rise from... Kidtron, no! Bad Kidtron. Bad wolf. Cool skeleton, we are killing... Oh, no. Let me read my book. Cool skeleton, they are more... I'm just gonna keep reading. He said that was the advantage of Irish stew. You got rid of such a lot of things. I fished out a couple of eggs that had got cracked, and we put those in. George said they would thicken the gravy. Plague Doctorman, if I redeem improvise a story, can you tell me a sandcastle story instead? Improvise a story, I tell a short story. And it's whatever story I can come up at the... I could do a requested story, but it's whatever story that I can come up with in a very short amount of time. I forget the other ingredients, but I know nothing was wasted, and I remember that towards the end, Montmorency, who had evinced great interest in the proceedings throughout, strolled away with an earnest and thoughtful air, reappearing a few minutes afterwards with a dead water rat in his mouth, which he evidently wished to present as his contribution to the dinner. Whether in a sarcastic spirit or with a genuine desire to assist, I cannot say. Cool show. Guess what? What? We had a discussion as to whether the rat should go in or not. Harris said he thought it would be all right, mixed up with the other things, and that every little helped. But George stood up for precedent. He said he had never heard of water rats in Irish stew, and he would rather be on the safe side and not try experiments. Harris said, "If you never try a new thing, how can you tell what it's like? It's men such as you that hamper the world's progress. Think of the man who first tried German sausage." It was a great success, that Irish stew. I don't think I ever enjoyed a meal more. Cool show. I'm gonna have to speak that because I don't want to get in trouble with copyright. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around, desert you. Haha, get rickrolled. I actually, it's funny. I actually like that song. I really do unironically like that song, and I would happily sing it if I wouldn't get copyright struck. Plague Doctrine. I need this backstory though. Never seen a more intense rivalry than a weird space librarian against sandcastles. Um, so I'm gonna pause this for a moment so I can explain it. What happened was it was when I was playing a game called Tome. One of the puzzles, the Tome video game is on my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel. The it has the playthroughs, previous playthroughs, and previous reading streams I've done. But long story short, there is a sandcastle contest in Tome, and we got way off topic, and the sandcastles just plagued me for that scene. But you can see the playthrough of that on my YouTube channel. If you look up Matsu Quinox on YouTube, my my channel's there. It has all the videos on demand of previous streams, as well as shorts, which I sometimes post as well that are independent from this stream. It was a great success, that Irish stew. I don't think I'd ever enjoyed a meal more. There was something so fresh and piquant about it. One's palate gets so tired of the old hackneyed things. Here was a dish with a new flavor, with a taste like nothing else on earth. And it was nourishing too. As George said, there was good stuff in it. The peas and potatoes might have been a bit softer, but we all had good teeth, so that did not matter much. And as for the gravy, it was a poem. A little too rich perhaps for a weak stomach, but nutritious. We finished up with tea and cherry tart. Montmorency had a fight with the kettle during tea time and came off a poor second. Throughout the trip he had manifest great curiosity concerning the kettle. He would sit and watch it as it boiled with a puzzled expression, and would try and rouse it every now and then by growling at it. When it began to splutter and steam, he regarded it as a challenge, and would want to fight it. Only, at that precise moment, someone would always dash up and bear off his prey before he could get at it. Today he determined he would be beforehand. At the first sound the kettle made, he rose, growling, and advanced towards it in a threatening attitude. It was only a little kettle, but it was full of pluck, and it up and spat at him. "Ah, would ye?" growled Montmorency, showing his teeth. "I'll teach ye to cheek a hard-working, respectable dog, ye miserable, long-nosed, dirty-looking scoundrel, ye! Come on!" And he rushed at that poor little kettle and seized it by the spout. Then across the evening stillness broke a blood-curdling yelp, and Montmorency left the boat and did a constitutional 3 times round the island at the rate of 35 miles an hour, stopping every now and then to bury his nose in a bit of cool mud. From that day Montmorency regarded the kettle with a mixture of awe, suspicion, and hate. Whenever he saw it he would growl and back at a rapid rate, with his tail shut down, and the moment it was put upon the stove he would promptly climb out of the boat and sit on the bank till the whole tea business was over. George got out his banjo after supper and wanted to play it, but Harris objected. He said he had got a headache and did not feel strong enough to stand it. George thought the music might do him good. Said music often soothed the nerves and took away headache, and he twanged 2 or 3 notes just to show Harris what it was like. Harris said he would rather have the headache. George has never learned to play the banjo to this day. He has had too much all-round discouragement to meet. He tried on 2 or 3 evenings while we were up the river to get a little practice, but it was never a success. Harris's language used to be enough to unnerve any man, added to which Montmorency would sit and howl steadily right through the performance. It was not giving the man a fair chance. "What's he want to howl like that for when I'm playing?" George exclaimed indignantly while taking aim at him with a boot. What do you want to play? Excuse me, gotta get the voice. What do you want to play like that for, when he was howling? Harris would retort, catching the boot. You let him alone. He can't help howling. He's got a musical ear, and your playing makes him howl. So George determined to postpone study of the banjo until he reached home. But he did not get much opportunity even there. Mrs. P used to come up and say she was very sorry. She was very sorry. For herself, she liked to hear him, but the lady upstairs was in a very delicate state, and the doctor was afraid it might injure the child. Then George tried taking it out with him late at night and practicing round the square, but the inhabitants complained to the police about it, and a watch was sent for him one night, and he was captured. The evidence against him was very clear, and he was bound over to keep the peace for 6 months. Excuse me. He seemed to lose heart in the business after that. He did make one or two feeble efforts to take up the work again when the 6 months had elapsed, but there was always the same coldness, the same want of sympathy on the part of the world to fight against. And after a while he despaired altogether, and advertised the instrument for sale at a great sacrifice, owner having no further use for same, and took to learning card tricks instead. It must be disheartening work learning a musical instrument. You would think that society, for its own sake, would do all it could to assist a man to acquire the art of playing a musical instrument, but it doesn't. I knew a young fellow once who was studying to play the bagpipes, and you would be surprised at the amount of opposition he had to contend with. Why, not even from the members of his own family did he receive what you can call active encouragement. His father was dead against the business from the beginning, and spoke quite unfeeling on the subject. My friend used to get up early in the morning to practice, but he had to give that plan up, because of his sister. She was somewhat religiously inclined, and she said it seemed such an awful thing to begin the day like that. So he sat up at night instead, and played after the family had gone to bed. But that did not do, as it got the house such a bad name. People going home late would stop outside to listen, and then put it about all over the town the next morning that a fearful murder had been committed at Mr. Jefferson's the night before, and would describe how they had heard the victim's shrieks and the brutal oaths and curses of the murderer, followed by the prayer for mercy and the last dying gurgle of the corpse. You know, they joke, but I actually like bagpipe music. I like bagpipe music unironically. Same with accordion music. I think it's lovely. So they let him practice in the daytime, in the back kitchen with all the doors shut. But his more successful passages could generally be heard in the sitting room, in spite of these precautions, and would affect his mother almost to tears. Let me get another little drink of water. Excuse me. Julian 20, yeah, I helped that one. Julian 20, I love that too. Interesting. Good taste in music. She said it put her in mind of her poor father. He had been swallowed by a shark, poor man, while bathing off the coast of New Guinea, where the Conaxus came in. She could not explain. Then they knocked up a little place for him at the bottom of the garden, about a quarter of a mile from the house, and made him take the machine down there when he wanted to work it. And sometimes a visitor would come to the house who knew nothing of the matter, and they would forget to tell him all about it, and caution him, and he would go out for a stroll round the garden, and suddenly get within earshot of those bagpipes without being prepared for it. Excuse me. Or knowing what it was. If he were a man of strong mind, it only gave him fits, but a person of mere average intelligence it usually sent mad. There is, I must confess, something very sad about the early efforts of an amateur in bagpipes. I have felt that myself, when listening to my young friend. They appear to be trying instrument to perform upon. They appear to be a trying instrument to perform upon. You have to get enough breath for the whole tune before you start. At least, so I gathered from watching Jefferson. He would begin magnificently with a wild, full come to the battle sort of note that quite roused you. But he would get more and more piano as he went on, and the last verse generally collapsed in the middle with a sputter and a hiss. You want to be in good health to play the bagpipes. Young Jefferson only learned to play one tune on those bagpipes, but I never heard any complaints about the insufficiency of his repertoire. None whatever. This tune was "The Campbells Are Coming, Hooray, Hooray." So he said, though his father always held that it was "The Bluebells of Scotland." Nobody seemed quite sure what it was exactly, but they all agreed that it sounded Scotch. Strangers were allowed 3 guesses, and most of them guessed a different tune each time. Harris was disagreeable after supper. I think it must have been the stew that had upset him. He is not used to high living. Oh, thank you for the hydrate, FT Waits, and welcome. Glad to have you here. He is not used to high living, so George and I left him in the boat and settled to go for a mooch round Henley. He said he should have a glass of whiskey and a pipe and fix things up for the night. We were to shout when we returned, and he would row over from the island and fetch us. Cool Skeleton wants some river water. FT Waits already have some, thank you. Stop drinking river water, please. Please, my dear scholars, don't drink the river. Don't go to sleep, old man, we said as we started. Not much fear of... No, who was it? Who's it? It was Harris. Not much fear of that while this stew is on, he grunted as he pulled back to the island. Henley was getting ready for the regatta, and was full of bustle. We met a goodish number of men we knew about the town, and in their pleasant company the time slipped by somewhat quickly, so that it was nearly 11 o'clock before we set off on our 4-mile walk home, as we had learned to call our little craft by this time. It was a dismal night, coldish, with a thin rain falling, and as we trudged through the dark silent fields, talking low to each other and wondering if we were going right or not, we thought of the cozy boat, with the bright lights streaming through the tight drawn canvas of Harrison Montmorency, and the whiskey, and wished that we were there. We conjured up the picture of ourselves inside, tired and a little hungry, and the gloomy river and the shapeless trees, and like a giant glowworm underneath them. Our dear old boat, so snug and warm and cheerful. We could see ourselves at supper there, pecking away at cold meat, and passing each other chunks of bread. We could hear the cheery clatter of our knives, the laughing voices, filling all the spaces, and overflowing through the opening out into the night, and we hurried on to realize the vision. We struck the towpath at length, and that made us happy, because prior to this we had not been sure whether we were walking towards the river or away from it. And when you are tired and want to go to bed, and uncertainties like that worry you, and when I gotta read that again. And when you are tired and want to go to bed, uncertainties like that worry you. We passed Ship Lake as the clock was striking the quarter to 12, and then George said thoughtfully, "You don't happen to remember which of the islands it was, do you?" "No," I replied, beginning to grow thoughtful too. "I don't. How many are there?" "Only 4," answered George. "You'll be all right if he's awake." "And if not?" I queried, but we dismissed that train of thought. We shouted when we came opposite the first island, but there was no response. So we went to the second and tried there, and obtained the same result. "Oh, I remember now," said George. "It was the third one." And we ran on hopefully to the third one, and helloed. No answer. The case was becoming serious. It was now past midnight. The hotels at Shiplake and Henley would be crammed, and we could not go round, knocking up cottagers and householders in the middle of the night to know if they let apartments. George suggested walking back to Henley and assaulting a policeman, and so getting a night's lodgings in the station house. But then there was the thought, suppose he only hits us back and refuses to lock us up. Only these two would think about that idea for a plan. We could not pass the whole night fighting policemen. Besides, we did not want to overdo the thing and get 6 months. We despairingly tried what seemed in the darkness to be the fourth island, but met with no better success. The rain was coming down fast now, and evidently meant to last. We were wet to the skin and cold and miserable, and we began to wonder whether there was only 4 islands or more, or whether we were near the islands at all, or whether we were anywhere within a mile of where we ought to be, or in the wrong part of the river altogether. Everything looked so strange and different in the darkness. We began to understand the sufferings of the babes in the woods. Just when we had given up all hope, yes, I know that is always the time that things do happen in novels and tales, but I can't help it. I resolved it when I began to write this book that I would be strictly truthful in all things, and so I will be, even if I have to employ hackneyed phrases for the purpose. Wow, he really knows his stuff. It was just when we had given up all hope, and I must therefore say so, just when we had given up all hope, that I suddenly caught sight, a little way below us, of a strange, weird sort of glimmer, flickering among the trees on the opposite bank. For an instant I thought of ghosts. It was such a shadowy, mysterious light. The next moment it flashed across me that it was our boat, and I sent up such a yell across the water that made the night seem to shake in its bed. We waited breathless for a minute, and then, oh divinest of music of the darkness, we heard the answering bark of Montmorency. We shouted back loud enough to wake the 7 sleepers. I never could understand myself why it should take more noise to wake 7 sleepers than one, and after what seemed an hour, but what was really, I suppose, about 5 minutes, we saw the lighted boat creeping slowly over the blackness, and heard Harris's sleepy voice asking where we were. There was an unaccountable strangeness about Harris. It was something more than mere ordinary tiredness. We pulled the boat against a part of the bank from which it was quite impossible for us to get into it, and immediately went to sleep. Oh, he pulled the boat against a part of the bank from which it was quite impossible for us to get into it, and immediately went to sleep. Sorry about that, I stumbled over the words. It took us an immense amount of screaming and roaring to wake him up again, and put some sense into him, but we succeeded at last and got safely on board. Harris had a sad expression on him, so he noticed. When we got into the Harris had a sad expression on him, so we noticed, when we got into the boat. He gave you the idea of a man who had been through trouble. We asked him if anything had happened, and he said, "Swans." It seemed we had moored close to a swan's nest, and soon after George and I had gone, the female swan came back and kicked up a row about it. Harris had chivied her off, and she had gone away, and fetched up her old man. Harris said he had quite a fight with these 2 swans, but courage and skill had prevailed in the end, and he had defeated them. Half an hour afterwards they returned with 18 other swans. It must have been a fearful battle so far as we could understand Harris's account of it. The swans had tried to drag him and Montmorency out of the boat and drown them, and he had defended himself like a hero for 4 hours, and had killed the lot, and they had all paddled away to die. Cool skeleton, like geese. Yes, swans are very, very, very aggressive animals. Do not pick a fight with a swan. They are like geese except 10 times more aggressive. They will actually go out of their way and pick fights with other birds. They will they have been known to if they see another bird in a pond they want to be in, they will deliberately swim up to that bird and attack it. They are very aggressive. How many swans did you say there were? Asked George. 32, replied Harris sleepily. You said 18 just now, said George. Private Mac, we're not running away. We just gonna get more boys and come. Oh my goodness. We're gonna get more boys and come back for another go. Union 20, maybe I should choreograph an alternate Swan Lake. Yes, do Swan Lake as a street fight. It starts off normal and then immediately descends into fisticuffs the rest of the way. No, I didn't, grunted Harris. I said 12. Think I can't count? What were the real facts about these swans we never found out. We questioned Harris on the subject in the morning, and he said, What swans? And seemed to think that George and I had been dreaming. Oh, how delightful it was to be safe in the boat after our trials and fears. We ate a hearty supper, George and I, and we should have had some toddy after it, if we could have found the whiskey, but we could not. We examined Harris as to what he had done with it, but he did not seem to know what we meant by whiskey, or what we were talking about at all. Montmorency looked as if he knew something, but said nothing. I slept well that night, and should have slept better if I had not been for Harris. I have vague recollection of having been woken up at least a dozen times during the night by Harris, wandering about the boat with the lantern looking for his clothes. He seemed to be worrying about his clothes all night. Twice he routed up George and myself to see if we were lying on his trousers. George got quite wild the second time. What the thunder do you want your trousers for in the middle of the night? He asked indignantly. Why don't you lie down and go to sleep? I found him in trouble the next time I awoke because he could not find his socks, and my last hazy remembrance is of being rolled over on my side and of hearing Harris muttering something about it being an extraordinary thing where his umbrella could have got to. So, my dear scholars, normally we do 3 chapters, but it is getting fairly late on my end, so we might only stop at 2 and save next time's stream for 4 chapters. In fact, I believe the last chapter of this story is a short one. So, my dear scholars, the rest of next week. So next week, my dear scholars, we will be only having one stream. Tuesday, we will be playing more Metal Gear Solid, and hopefully I will do a better job this time. I will try and do some training beforehand just to test. I might even go to easy mode, maybe. I don't know yet. Um, but I will be taking the Thursday off, so there will be no reading stream next week. The week after next, we will be doing a reading stream though, and we will finish off Three Men in a Boat. FT Waste, can't wait to see it. Well, I'm always happy to read this book, and I love it reading it. Cool skeleton. Okay, wonderful job. Thank you, Julian20. Thank you. Oh my goodness, I can feel myself being so tired. So before we go, let's see if there is someone we can raid tonight. Let's see. Who is streaming? Oh, if my fingers will work. Oh, Sophia is reading The Lost Princess of Oz, so we will read her tonight. So, my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Till we meet each other again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, farewell and bye bye.